scared as a Steeler.
All right. So here's my thing. I want to talk about something with you because I have this thing that I feel like the media jumps on this week to week narrative. So every week there's a new drama. Every week this guy's finished, this guy's done, this next guy's no good. What's going to happen to this guy? I can't believe how bad this guy played. It's time for them to sit him. Like this week they're talking about Ezekiel Elliott should be sat in favor of his backup for the last 4 years. You just had an article on What's on Sports that I found incredibly interesting. And the headline of the article is it time for Tom Brady to retire? You're talking about one of the greatest of all time, who as of 2 weeks ago, I believe was on your MVP list. Correct me if I'm wrong, was on your MVP list.
He was.
A week later, you said, or you actually okayed the article to say, is it time for Tom Brady to retire? Would you like to explain yourself?
Sure. Well, like you said, that article was not written by me. It was written by one of our writers, Lance. And I'm always open to having the conversation. So do I think Tom Brady should retire? Absolutely not. Is it fair to look at his performance on Monday night against the Saints and think, Jesus, is this guy? I mean, wait, is this Tom Brady? This is the greatest of all time. He certainly didn't look like it on Monday night. Now, my argument for putting him on the
Monday night was not one of his best games.
I think it was historically one of his worst. He had the second lowest yardage total of the year. I think he had like 160 yards against Green Bay in week 6. He had 0 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. And as far as fantasy managers go, he had 2.3 fantasy points on Monday night. So absolutely abysmal that the Buccaneers could not get anything going. And that starts with Tom Brady, but it also has to do with the offensive coordinator, Byron Leftwich, head coach, Bruce Arians. Nothing that they had no scheme to get that offense moving against, a middle of the road Saints defense. So
I was just going to say, I think you have to give the Saints some credit. I think you have to give the Saints some credit for putting together a game plan that put a tremendous amount of pressure on Brady and forced him to make decisions that were not Tom Brady's like decisions. And I also,
100%.
from a personal standpoint, I would also like to blame Antonio Brown. I think he's a cancer. I think he caused Brady to think too long in the pocket, thinking about how I can get AB the ball. I think as we see that play out through the next few weeks, I think you're going to see a slower moving Brady, not because of his age, but because of an arsenal that is just too deep with players. You shouldn't have this many stars on your team.
Well, I think Tom Brady would have an argument against that. I think he wants as many stars as he can get around him, talent-wise. You bring up a good point about AB's personality. Obviously, everyone knows the struggles that he's had with his own mental health. And then it seems, and then he causes problems in the locker room. Obviously, you were very familiar with that in Pittsburgh.
Well, listen, let me back up. And when I say he's a cancer, I don't mean he's a cancer from his past. I mean, obviously, there's some skeletons in his closet.
Mm-hmm.
What I mean is you already have Gronkowski, who has put his ego aside, saying, listen, I didn't play for a year. I know I'm not the superstar I was. That's okay. I'll be your third guy. I'll be behind Mike Evans, and I'll be behind Godwin. I'll be behind those guys. Mm-hmm. Now you bring in an Antonio Brown, and your number 1 and number 2 got to be thinking to themselves, hey, what the heck happened here? Are we not good enough to be number 1 and number 2 anymore? Is one of us not going to be number 2? Is one of us not going to be number 1? Gronk's got to be thinking, hey, am I not number 3 anymore? Am I number 4? I mean, you have to see that when these things happen, there's a chain effect. And Brady now isn't thinking who's open. He's thinking who needs the ball.
It's a fair point, but in argument to that, I mean, both Mike Evans and Chris Godwin were targeted more than Antonio Brown on Monday night, and they both produced more as well. But I mean, AB looked good on those 3. I think he caught 3 passes for 31 yards, and each one of those was for a first down. So it's not like Tom Brady is forcing him the ball. Tom Brady looked to AB when they needed to make a play, and AB made plays. I mean, honestly, Tom Brady should have given him more targets. They should have tried to feed him a little bit more to get something going because nothing else was working.
But
So
it is fair that nothing else worked. It is very
yeah,
fair that nothing else worked.
so I could have seen. I would have expected Tom Brady to maybe try to get AB more involved, but he had only
Well, and
been
I
with
think we
him
talked
for a
about this,
week.
and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the Buccaneers ran the ball 4 times.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the exact stat on that, but it was not a lot. I'll tell you that. Let's see.
Yeah, it was not a lot. It was not a
Yeah,
lot, and they actually for if you can check the stats, but I want
nope,
to
that's
say
right.
that
4 times. Fournette had 1 rush. Ronald Jones had 3.
right, and I want to say Fournette was targeted 10 times in the pass game. So to me, I think you want to get the ball in all your playmakers' hands, but if you're not trying to smash the ball up the middle, you're not trying to protect your quarterback at all. I literally know it's a pass. I can tee off and rush my rushing lanes and try to a quarterback who doesn't move very well. I can
Mhm.
go and just try to kill that guy every play, and that's why you end up with 3 interceptions and a Tom Brady that looks like he should retire. So your final verdict on this, you guys wrote the opinion that perhaps he should retire. What do you think about Brady the rest of the way?
I think historically Brady comes back very well after a poor performance. But historically he had performed well in primetime games. This was a Monday night game, his worst performance of his career. But he's one of the best bounce back quarterbacks that we've ever seen, let alone one of the best we've ever seen in general. So I think he bounces back. I like him. I like him. This week he's got a favorable matchup against the Carolina Panthers. So I'm still on Brady, and I would say to any fantasy manager out there, you probably don't have a better option. I mean, maybe you do. Maybe you have. I mean,
That's
if you
not great advice.